Hello everyone, I'm Zhang Xingyue and here with my group members Zhang Hengshuo, Liu Zihan, Song Xunhao, and Guo Jiaming. Today, we're here to present with our topic, The Endogenous Growth Theories by Romer.
Today, I will start with the introduction of our topic, which focuses on long-run economic growth. In macroeconomics, we often observe that countries grow at very different speeds. Some countries are able to achieve fast and stable growth over a long period of time, while others grow more slowly and struggle to catch up. These differences are important because long-run economic growth affects people's income levels, opportunities, and overall living standards. One of the earliest models to explain economic growth is the solo growth model. This model emphasizes capital accumulation, labor growth, and technological progress. However, in the solo model, technological progress is assumed to be exogenous. This means that the model does not explain how technology is created or why some countries are able to improve technology faster than others. To address this limitation, Romer's endogenous growth theory provides a different explanation. Romer emphasizes the role of innovation, research and development, and human capital in driving long-run economic growth. According to this theory, economic growth depends on intentional investment decisions made within an economy. In this presentation, we apply Romer's endogenous growth theory to explain why some countries grow faster than others. Specifically, we compare Malaysia and Singapore to examine how differences in innovation, human capital, and policy choice may influence the long-run economic growth.
Now let's move to the discussion issues about Romer's endogenous growth theory. Explains that long-term economic growth is driven by knowledge, innovation, and human effort rather than chance. He identifies three key factors: R&D, human capital, and the knowledge spillovers. R&D enables firms and governments to develop new technologies and improve production. By investing in R&D, firms generate new ideas that raise productivity. Unlike physical capital, knowledge does not depreciate and can be reused, allowing continuous economic growth. Human capital refers to the education and the skills of the workforce. Skilled workers, especially researchers and engineers, are essential for innovation and technology adoption. Education also helps countries absorb foreign technologies, leading to faster growth. Knowledge spillovers arise because knowledge is non-rival. New ideas created by one individual or firm can be used by others, creating a cumulative process of innovation. Economies that promote knowledge sharing gain long-term advantages. Overall, Romer theory highlights R&D, human capital, and knowledge spillovers as the main drivers of sustained economic growth.
Well, this slide I will introduce Singapore as a high-growth, innovation-driven economy, explained through Romer's endogenous growth theory. First, in terms of research and development investment, Singapore places strong emphasis on innovation and technological progress. According to World Bank data in 2022, Singapore's R&D expenditure accounted for approximately 2.2% of GDP. Although this ratio is slightly lower than that of some large developed economies, it is relatively high for a small and resource-scarce country, reflecting the strategic importance Singapore places on knowledge-based growth. Second, regarding researchers in R&D, Singapore has a highly concentrated pool of scientific talent, with around 6,800 to 7,000 researchers per million people. Strong research base supports continuous innovation and aligns with Romer's view that knowledge production is central to long-run economic growth. Third, in terms of education and human capital, Singapore has consistently invested in higher education, particularly in STEM fields. A large share of the workforce holds tertiary qualifications, providing skilled labor and researchers necessary for innovation activities. Finally, looking at economic growth performance, although Singapore is a mature high-income economy with a relatively modest GDP growth rate of around 1% to 2%, this growth is largely driven by innovation, knowledge accumulation, and high value-added industries, which is consistent with Romer's endogenous growth framework. Well, this slide I will focus on the Malaysia as a lower growth catch-up economy, highlighting the contrast in growth mechanisms. First, in terms of R&D investment, Malaysia's expenditure on research and development is significantly lower. According to World Bank data, R&D spending has remained at around 1% of GDP, which is considerably below that of advanced economies such as Singapore. This limits the scale of domestic knowledge creation. Second, regarding researcher density, Malaysia had approximately 700 researchers per million people, indicating a much smaller research base. This constrains the country's innovation capacity and slows knowledge accumulation. Third, in terms of education and human capital, although access to tertiary education has expanded, Malaysia's workforce is still dominated by medium-skilled labor, which is shortage of highly skilled R&D and innovation-oriented talent. This reduced the effectiveness of R&D investment. Finally, in terms of economic growth performance, Malaysia as a middle-income country has achieved relatively strong GDP growth of around 4% to 5%. However, this growth is mainly driven by capital accumulation, manufacturing, and exports, rather than innovation-led productivity improvement. From the perspective of Roman endogenous growth theory, Malaysia remains in catch-up growth phase, while Singapore has traditional to knowledge and innovation driving long-term growth paths.
Next, I will compare the long-term economic growth patterns of Singapore and Malaysia based on Romer's endogenous growth theory. The core idea of Romer theory is that long-term growth does not come from the simple accumulation of traditional factors like capital and labor, but from endogenous investment in knowledge, innovation, and human capital. Knowledge is non-rigorous and generates spillover effect, which continuously improve productivity and overcoming diminishing returns to capital. Based on this framework, let's look at the data from both countries. First, in R&D investment, Singapore's R&D intensive is 2.2% of GDP, reflecting a proactive national innovation strategy. In contrast, Malaysia's R&D spending has remained around 1% of GDP, indicating that its growth still relies more on applying existing technologies rather than creating new knowledge. Second, in human capital, Singapore has about 6,800 to 7,000 researchers per million people and heavily invests in STEM education, building a dense network of knowledge creators. Malaysia, however, has only about 712 researchers per million people, and its workforce is mostly medium-skilled, limiting its ability to innovate and absorb knowledge. These differences are directly reflected in their growth model. Singapore, as a high-income economy, maintains stable growth about 2%, driven by high-value-added industries and innovation. This is a typical productivity-driven endogenous growth pattern. Malaysia, although growing faster at 4 to 5%, relies mainly on capital accumulation and export, a catch-up growth model that still faces the challenge of diminishing marginal returns.
To conclude, this presentation discussed long-run economic growth using Romer's endogenous growth theory. Overall, the discussion shows that long-run economic growth is not only determined by traditional factors such as capital and labor. Instead, factors like innovation, research and development, and human capital also play an important role. Compared to the solo growth model, Romer's theory provides a better explanation for why economic growth outcomes can differ across countries over time. In general, countries that place more emphasis on education, skills, and innovation tend to have better conditions for long-term growth. On the other hand, countries with lower investment in these areas may face more challenges in sustaining high growth rates. This helps us understand why some countries grow faster than others. So, from a policy perspective, long run economic growth is not something that happens automatically. Government policies and long term planning, especially in education and innovation, can influence growth performance. For developing and middle income countries, strengthening investment in knowledge based activities may help support more sustainable economic growth in the future. So that's all for our presentation. Thank you for your listening.